Pleasant good morning to one and all. Good morning to all the viewers. Here we are again, another Wednesday morning. Speaking out, exposing corruption and incompetence is on. Welcome to all of you. Welcome. I see the early boards are here. Sagi, Dudley, welcome. All the others, welcome. Denise, Denise, you note that people like Lenny and some others, Natasha, they're late. I hope you're keeping a note, you're having a record of all those latecomers so that they can be dealt with appropriately. Tessa, welcome, welcome, welcome. The regulars are on. Wayne, good morning, welcome, welcome. You know the drill, share the live, share the live. Let them know that we're on. We have so much to discuss this morning. Myself and my co-accused, my co-host, Mr. Clinton Conway, who's already in the studio, ready and raring to go. So share the word, let them know that we're here. We have lots of issues to discuss this morning. Welcome, Terence. Welcome. Falling, Coverdon, Muster Parade, falling and be inspected. I am inspecting the persons who have reported for duty. What is it? 3 minutes after. So let's give them some time. Let's give them a little grace period. Even though they are late already, I indicated to them before that you're supposed to report 15 minutes before duty. And you report, and as we discussed last week, when you reported for duty, then welcome, Lenny, welcome. When you reported for duty, one of the things that was done by the SO was to read to you the fire order, when you may fire or when you may shoot. So that is one of the reasons why you have to report for duty early, so that the fire order could be read to you. I have no fire order to read to you this morning, but all I can say to you, I'm sure you're going to have, we have lots of issues to discuss, lots of issues to discuss. So share the live. The numbers are mounting, but share the live. Let them know that we're on this morning and we are going to delve into the subjects. I did indicate in the notification that the main subject will be evidence. I asked the question, what is evidence? And this question was asked because in recent times, people have been running away to say, you have some incidents, some issues, and people are telling you, oh, there's no evidence, and there's no evidence. So we're going to discuss this morning what our training was when we were at the college. And in the case of Mr. Conway, he was a facilitator there. He was in charge of the college for years. We both are graduates of the FBI Academy. So we're going to discuss with you this morning what is evidence. That will be the main topic for our discussion. But as usual, before we get into the main topic, there are other issues that we are going to update you on. There are other issues that we're going to seek to comment on before we get into the main issue. But as you know, I would normally tell you too, today is a good day. It's Wednesday, 22nd of June in the year 2022. Here we are in the land of the living. I'm sure that we're all grateful to be here. We have to give thanks to the Almighty for allowing us to be here. Many persons did not have this privilege, but we are here so that, and this is the day that the Lord has made. Let's rejoice and be glad in it. Let's rejoice and be glad that we're in the land of the living for another day. And we can be here on social media to interact with you and to spread the word and to let you know what is going on. So share. Good morning, share. Raul, welcome. Aubrey, welcome. Everett, welcome. Sister Trifosa, welcome. Always a pleasure to see these regulars on this program. And as you know, I say every day that I move about with my normal business, people are meeting me. People are saying how wonderful they find the program, how informative they find the program. Members of the force, even though they are scared to view at certain times, they indicate, look, they find this thing so interesting, they find it so educational, and they will continue to follow the program. So I'm grateful for that. And I want to promise you that I will continue to be here and to share the knowledge that I have. Mr. Conway has indicated the same thing. We are going to share the knowledge and to make you, if the civilian persons, know what your rights are, and for the members of the force, know what some of the standing orders, what you are supposed to do, what the law allows you to do. So it is important that you do that, lest you know that, lest you find yourself in trouble. Now, let me bring Mr. Conway in at this stage. CC, good morning. Welcome to another episode of Speaking Out, Exposing Corruption and Incompetence. How have you been?
Good morning, Paul. Welcome to you and the listeners, the audience. I've been good. God has been good to me and my family, and I'm happy to be in the land of the living, although it's raining where I am right now.
Well, rain is a good thing. I think the farmers must be celebrating. Those young ducks should be glad as well that you have a lot of rain. Unfortunately, in some areas, I noted in the media, Madhya and in Kwakwani areas, those places are flooded out. So let's hope. I don't think they want the rain. They would like to see the water recede. But for us on the coastline that have not been inundated with the water, I think we are somewhat glad for it. But we have our brothers in other areas that are not so fortunate. They're not so happy, and we need to reach out and sympathize with those persons. But CCO, we always say at the end of one week that we might plan to deal with a particular subject the following week. But then things intervene. Every week it happens in that manner, something intervene that we feel is compelling that we should discuss. And therefore, when we concluded last week, Wednesday, we had no indication or we had no intention of discussing the subject evidence. But then, having regards to many things that have taken place in the past few days, I think we thought it best to educate people and to tell them exactly what we learned that evidence is. Bear in mind, we are not lawyers, we are not in the legal profession, but we are experienced former police officers, very experienced. And we were fortunate, both of us, to be exposed to training at the FBI Academy. So we think we know something what we're talking about. And in Mr. Conway's case, he was in charge of training at the police Felix Austin Police College for a number of years. He was also facilitator at the Regional Police College in Jamaica. So I think we know what we are, when we get to that subject, we know something about what we are talking or what we're going to be talking about. But before we go into that, I saw something that I think we would want to comment on. A few days ago, I saw in a release from the police, and the thing disturbed me quite a lot. This release that I refer to is a former um, retired assistant commissioner of police, a good friend, and he was a very good colleague of ours, Ovid Glasgow, being presented with a bicycle by the Minister of Home Affairs. Ovid Glasgow, a retired assistant commissioner of police who worked for a number of years at the ministry in several capacities, community policing coordinator. And I think at one stage we used to tease him that he was the head cowboy because he headed the stray catching unit. This man is now being presented, and I'm sure Ovid is pushing towards 80 years old. And the ministry thought it prudent, thought it best to present a man who is pushing towards 80 with a bicycle and then advertise it big in the paper. They are happy that he's been presented with a bicycle. See, what is your take on that?
It's shocking, Paul. A man who gave human service to the Guyana Police Force and the conscious old Rambo. He represented Guyana in cricket, regional cricket. I remember he played against Gary Sobers and them at border. I saw them match. And to give him a bicycle, well, apparently they hustling to score political points. If I'd been in that position, I would have refused that bicycle, honestly.
Yeah, this thing disturbed me so much. The imagery of that. Here it is. You have can't say big man, an old man, because I'm sure Ovid is closer to 80 than 70,
Yeah.
and they think it fit to present him with a bicycle and have it publicized. And I have always said Ovid is a person I respect a lot because when I joined the force and I became an instructor in 1974, I was as a young instructor, drill instructor, they will assign you, attach you to a senior instructor. And the senior instructor to whom I was attached was Ovid. So in my early years as an instructor, I worked with Ovid. And then at one stage, Ovid was made to act as the inspector of the training school. So I was basically left on my own. And from that, I learned quite a lot because while the others had some senior instructor with them, I was given the opportunity to demonstrate my ability and all of that. So, and then in 1992, 91, it was, I took over the TSU from Ovid Glasgow, right? I took over from Ovid, and Ovid, I think at the time, went to 2IC Ops, and then he was my immediate boss. So we had a very good working relationship throughout the years. A very talented man. As you said, he was a cricketer. He played cricket for the police. He represented Guyana in cricket. He also played hockey, and I think he also represented Guyana. He was a very good hockey player as well. Very good
Yes.
hockey player, and this is what they are doing to him. This is what they're doing to him, presenting him with a bicycle at that age.
And Paul,
You
he was also
see anything
he
more?
was he was also a karateka, you know. I remember he's a black belt. And when I
Oh
was the
yes,
first
oh
when I
yes,
was the first training officer,
right.
I used to use him to train the recruits for self-defense, man. Excellent man.
Yeah, he was a self-defense. Correct. Self-defense expert, physical training,
Yeah.
self-defense escort. Ovid is a man when we were in training school. We used to run a night from him because from the time you pass by Ovid and you look a little slack, he said, drop and give me 10. Drop and
Yeah.
give me 15. He talking about push-ups. So you used to
Push-ups.
get to the stage where you do it, what you see, you know you're gonna give you push-ups. And when I was in training school, we went to the sent us to Kilwibiri to do some work when I was a trainee. And Ovid is the man who led us there. Ovid took us. There's a story with Ovid, and we had a squaddy Gadraj, uh, the minister's brother, younger brother. And Ovid is a man, because he was a self-defense man, he used to come to you and tell you to put him in a lock, put him in a vice, put him in a lock, and then he will try to get out. He will show you how to get out of the lock. And one day, you get young Gadraj put in a lock. And when we realized that Ovid can't come out of the lock, we had to go and get Gadraj Lucy. See Ovid fighting up to come out of the lock and can't get out of the lock, the vice that they might put in. So Ovid was, you're right, he taught self-defense, he taught button twirling, he taught all of those things. And to see that the ministry is I think it's a disgraceful display by the minister and those at the ministry.
Yeah. That's true.
Disgraceful, disrespectful, and disgraceful. Well, let me move on. There's another issue that I want us to talk about. Another topical issue: the trailing of the opposition leader by members of the police force, and the statement from the man who sits in the chair that he does not know about it. I understand the divisional commander says he doesn't know about it. The minister, I understand from reports, is alleged to have said that he doesn't know about it. So what really is going on? Here it is. Based on what I saw, a pickup, a white pickup with rounds inside, about 3 or 4 rounds inside. They were confronted and they did not see anything. And according to the report, they turned back. And then shortly after, these two men on motorcycle, two policemen on motorcycle, fully masked, they were confronted by the opposition leader, and they said that they were following instructions. CC, what is going on in this dear land of ours?
Well, apparently they're investigating what they already know. And it is established, Paul, that all the previous opposition leaders were trailed from Cherry to Height to Carbon to Granger to Hormone and even Jack Deal. He's saying the other day that a special branch man was in his office and they had cameras focusing on him and all sorts of things. So it got to be that it can't be that the lower ranks decide on their own that they must trail the leader of the opposition. Had to be instructions coming from high above, and they already know. So why put the OPR to do investigation? And if we come back to the trailing, is that in these modern days, these days of technology, you're going to put the uniform men men to trail it. What happened with the special branch? Well, I mustn't say what happened because I already know that it's watered down. Who they have there, and all most of the
Well,
real
they're doing sting operations, man. Remember, they're doing sting operations now.
well, perhaps that was part of a thing with the leader of the
Yeah, that's
opposition.
sting operations. No, well, it's worrying. It is
Yeah.
worrying. The ranks are saying they were given instructions. So the man who sits in the chair says, "All right, OPR is going to investigate." I get to the point now. Once I hear OPR, I become very, very pessimistic because from my experience, they will tell you OPR is going to conduct an investigation, and then you hear a little more about that investigation. And this is if OPR is to conduct an investigation, it's a simple investigation. I'm sure by now would have known who the ranks are, and the ranks would be made to say who gave them instructions to follow the opposition leader, clear and straightforward. And then the issue there is now with if you're talking about discipline, let's assume that some breach of discipline would have been occasioned by those who gave the instruction. You have OPR who is headed by a junior officer. He has no legal authority to investigate people who are senior to him. So where does that go? No, it's just intended to appease the opposition leader and members of the public to say an investigation is going on. Nothing more. Nothing more.
Paul, if I may go back
See,
to
yeah.
yeah, I remember OPR very well. The establishment. It was established by ICITAP, International Criminal Investigation Technical Assistant Program. There's a woman named Linda Lewis. She was in charge of the Caribbean and she helped to set up. And I remember when it's set up, it was headed by an assistant commissioner who became a deputy Edward Wills, followed by Mohammed Jamir, an assistant commissioner. Then we had Makanlal, who was head of the CID and assistant commissioner. Now we have a junior ASP. And as you rightly said, he can, if we deal with matters disciplinary wise, he can investigate his senior. The act is clear. You repeated several times on this program. And I recall it that every offense commission over breach of discipline shall be investigated as soon as practical by a member of the force not below the rank of a sergeant and of a higher rank who is alleged to have committed the offense. So you have an ASP. Sometimes for the sake of argument, let's say it's the commander give the instructions. So the ASP is going to investigate the senior superintendent. Well, give me a break.
Give me a break. That doesn't work. It's not permitted in law because I don't think it would have been a criminal offense. And I make the point repeatedly: if it's a criminal offense, then anyone can investigate. But
Yes.
if it's an offense against discipline, again in the as outlined in the Police Discipline Act, Chapter 17, colon 1, as you rightly pointed out, it has to be someone senior in rank to the person who is alleged to have committed the offense. So this, as we call it, we just said this salawala about OPR doing the investigation is just that. Something to appease the opposition leader and to appease the crowd. Now, next issue. I noted again, I think it was on Monday, today's on Monday, another person accused of murder walked free after the High Court. The judge found that there was no evidence against this person. As far as my memory serves me, in the past couple of months, this is the fourth such case. I remember Colin Bailey,
Yep.
the former sergeant. I
Yes.
remember the guy who was accused of killing the teacher. I think her name was Branch or something
Yes.
like that. There was a third one. I can't remember the exact details now. But this is one on Monday in front of the judge. And I have the thing here. The man spent almost 6 years in prison on a charge of murder. And at the hearing on Monday, the judge made the point. He found no evidence linking the accused to the fatal stabbing of the man, the Umesh Chetram, who they say is a vagrant, who was a vagrant of unity. The judge went on to say that the evidence shows that at the time of the stabbing, the accused was acting in
Of
self-defense
defense.
to
Yeah.
defend his mother's property. No, no, no. How this matter reached before the High Court? For the High Court to say that there is no evidence um, to link this man to this crime. And for those persons who are may not be au fait with the procedure, in a case like this, a murder case, there would have been a preliminary inquiry at the magistrate's court. Following the preliminary inquiry, all the papers there, the depositions would have been sent to the DPP, and the DPP is the one who will commit for murder or whatever other offense. So what happens? What has happened to this system? That this thing can go through a preliminary inquiry, can go to the DPP, the depositions can be then be committed, and for years down the road, the judge to remark that there's no evidence linking this person to the crime. What really has happened to this system? What really has happened to this system? How can citizens be confident that the legal system is working properly? Since you want to make a comment on that?
Yes, and Paul, the man pleaded guilty to manslaughter. And when the judge heard his explanation and asked the prosecutor about the evidence that was available, there was nothing. So he used his authority to change the plea from guilty to that of not guilty. And as you rightly said, I have a beef with the DPP that those matters before you charge for murder would have to go to the DPP. And when a magistrate, as you rightly said, when a magistrate commits someone to the high court, the deposition, the resume of proceedings, all will have to go to the DPP before the DPP decides to commit. And here's it, another one, no evidence, man has walked free.
Yeah, it's very disturbing. It's very, very disturbing. I remember one of the cases, I think it might have been the Oren Bailey case. It was remarked at the time that there were several other persons in prison where there is no evidence linking them to the offense. So here it is, after Oren Bailey, we have had at least three. So maybe those were the ones that the people were referring to at that time. But it's very, very worrying. It is very, very worrying. Now, the
There
next thing
might
I
be
want
there
to
might there might there might be many more still to come here.
well, for all you know, exactly for all you know, there might be more. There might be more such cases. But this whole system, I would think, calls for a review. This whole system calls for a review because we cannot have a system where that many persons, 2, 3, 4 persons, 4 are charged with the capital offense, and then after 3, 4 years, 5 years in prison, or for the judge to find that there's no evidence. And in some cases, the prosecution admits to the fact that there's no evidence. So something is definitely wrong. Something is definitely wrong. Now, the next thing, I remember a few weeks ago, you made the point about run-ins involving firearm license and so on. What has become of that matter? They said some investigation was going on. What has become of that?
Let me just
Do you know?
repeat myself. Let me repeat myself on what I wrote and what I still stand by. I have nothing to cause me to change my mind. There is a lucrative multi-million dollar gun runnings in Guyana. And I mentioned in my letter that it happened from personnel from Shift Chandrapal Drive, Young Street, a house in Rob Street, a location in Brickdam, not at the Bournemouth Police Station. And in labor time, with alacrity, there was a note coming out from the Ministry of Affairs asking me to give the evidence what I have to the CID and the Ministry of Home Affairs. I made it pellucid that I have no confidence with the investigation of the CID, particularly the Serious Crime Unit. The Suku is worse, very infamous. And also, I have no confidence in terms of confidentiality at the Home Affairs. Things happening right under the minister nose. And to use common term, his name is Colin. I'll leave it at that. So I give what I have to give to persons who are competent and compellable to take certain course of action. I will not give the CID, I will not give Suku I will not give Home Affairs any information about gun run-ins. And re, when I reflect on the East Coast murder recently, the man who gave information, the source, they expose him. He ended up in the lockups. Normally, you would protect your source, but then I didn't protect that source. They expose him and put him for days in the lockups. So I will not, and I repeat, I will not give CID, serious crime, Suku, or Ministry of Home Affairs no information. I started to investigate. I gave them enough. They got enough that they can take action. I can read and spell for them. And that is my position.
Thank you for that. But you talk about the gun runnings. Information came to my attention a few weeks ago that there's also, well, people would always talk about a lucrative driver's license and tint running too, tint permit. And somebody told me um, that their allegations are made that a certain senior retired police officer who operates out of an office in Brickdam, and again, not the police station, um, collecting people's money to arrange driver's license and tint permit for them. And he failed to deliver within a specific time, and a report was made to his boss. A report was made to his boss, and the boss promised to have it looked into. And the people are saying now it's about 3 to 4, maybe longer than that, no, but 4 weeks anything. And they're threatening to go public because the people say, look, we want back the money. We want back the money. The man collect money to give us to make sure to get driver's license and to make sure in some cases people get permit to have tint on their vehicle, and the man has not delivered. The man has not delivered. So that is the next scandal that is brewing. So it's not one, like it's runnings all over. They have runnings all over. The runnings, and you know, but the more famous ones recently. So it's a runnings place. You have runnings all over the place. So I thought I'd mention that because I know these people listen, and they have promised that within a short space of time, if the man didn't stump up, then they're gonna take the matter further. So runnings around, not only the gun license, not only the firearm license, but they got other thing as well. Now let me move on
Paul,
and
Paul,
say,
Paul, before you go, perhaps we can send
yeah,
those runners to the Olympics. We might win some gold medals,
you
man.
got get our first gold medal there. So a lot of run-ins taking place. Now the next issue that I want to briefly touch on, last week we spent a long time talking about when you may fire Force out of 3369, when you can legally fire. And I did say that some of the rules, at least two of the rules, were not only applicable to serving ranks of the force, but even civilians. And a few days after I saw this incident with the security guard, saw the report on the incident of the security guard working at a place somewhere in the East Bank, and he and a colleague had an argument. And the man, according to the report, he pulled out a pistol and shot the man in his leg. So what type of people we have carrying around firearm? What type of people we have employed by this private security service? A man can get annoyed over some incident involving a parking, excuse me, and he whips out his pistol and he shoots a colleague in the leg. Where are we going? What type of training are these persons exposed to? CC?
When you may fire is the guiding principle. And when we discharge firearm, the first thing we look at 33 of 69, when you may fire. And if anything can cover you there, you're in trouble. But as you rightly mentioned, what is going on with the training? I heard as a knee-jerk reaction, the man who sits in the chair, the commissioner chair at headquarters, saying that they would do 3 weeks of training. I haven't seen the program. I haven't seen the contents, the objectives, how they evaluate the persons there. And apart from that, all these security services are mushrooming about the place. And who do they take on? Pick up people wrong from the street and put the firearm in his hand. No proper training and no proper assessment of the person. No real investigation to what type of person is that the security taking on. And when you look at them sometimes, big high power rifle in the hand, no uniform. According to the Private Security Act, they're supposed to be in uniform and they're supposed to have their logo. I remember they used to come before this the admin team dressed in their uniform and we decide whether we'd approve or not. It's the type of persons that they're bringing in into the security service. As a time, I remember you mentioned that they're taking some old people and they go on and drink their liquor and they go to work tight. So you get tight security. Perhaps it's tight security you get in there.
Literally tight security. Now, and it is a clear case that at least this person is not temperamentally suited to
Yeah.
be in a security company, and is also not temperamentally suited to be carrying a firearm.
Yeah, firearm,
So,
yeah.
what type of checks, what type of training, what type of assessment is done? So, I hope that the powers that be will not see this incident as an isolated incident, because we are saying that you have a lot of people. This might be one who perhaps went to the extreme, if you want to call it that, and actually shot someone. But I know from past experience, as you indicated, they pick up people and they put them there. Most of these security companies, the private security companies, are merely in they're just looking at the bottom line. The more
Money.
clients they get, they get money, they pay the security people whatever they have to pay. And remember, it's the same pool everybody drawing from. And so therefore, this is worrying indeed. If the man can pull out a gun and shoot his own colleague over a minor altercation, you want to say, that man is a dangerous man. Wonder how many more like that they have in the system. Now, the next thing I want to touch on, this shooting on the East Coast. I mean, not so long ago, I see people are still demonstrating and so on. I want to make, again, I said last week, people are calling for the policeman involved to be charged. Um, I don't hold no brief for the policeman. If he commits the offense, he should be charged. But I'm cautioning that you need to ensure what you should be clamoring for now is for a proper independent investigation, because you're going to hustle now, you're going to charge, and if you don't have the evidence to sustain a prosecution, the matter would not even get past the preliminary inquiry. This case is a worrying case. This case has to be built on, I don't know if they have eyewitnesses, because I think it's the policemen who were chasing. I don't know what story they would have told, but this case should have been a case built on some scientific evidence. I don't know what scientific evidence they have. The man was shot 5 times in his back. Unfortunately, in this part, when the PM is done, the PM will just say, well, the man died from shock and hemorrhage due to gunshot wounds. Identify which shot might have been fatal and all of that. But we don't go to the next stage to deal with bullet angles and all that type of thing. We don't do that. To say, well, how far away the shooter might have been, whether he was standing over the deceased at the time. We don't do that type of thing. It's just basic postmortem. So I'm saying to those persons who are clamoring for charges to be filed, I think today they say today is the 13th day, to make sure what we need to do at this stage is to make sure that a proper investigation is done. I've been heard some reputable people claiming that some days after this killing, a man discharged his firearm in the same area, policeman discharged his firearm, and a couple of days after, he was before the court. And so therefore they're saying, well, if the man could have gone to court so quickly, why this other man? We're talking about different matters here. This one is an homicide investigation that requires much, 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 much more evidence. So I'm cautioning about that. We need to make sure that a proper investigation is done. And I did say, unlike what the man who sits in the chair tell you about police complaints authority will investigate, police complaint authority cannot investigate. They are empowered under the under the to supervise the investigation. So, for example, the gathering of the scientific evidence and so on that I spoke to earlier, the PCA, the Police Complaints Authority, don't do that. They don't do that. They can't process a crime scene for evidence. They might review the manner in which the investigation is done, look at the statements, and see if these statements were properly taken, and maybe suggest from whom other statements should be taken. That is the supervisory role of the Police Complaints Authority. But the impression that was created is that they will do all the investigation. As a matter of fact, it was expressly stated that the police will have nothing to do with it. The Police Complaints Authority will do. So I wanted to caution about that. And as we talk about evidence, let's roll straight into what we said we're going to talk about today. That is evidence. The question, what is evidence? CC, lead off on this one, man. What is evidence?
I have a couple definitions here. One that we used to use in training school is a testimony and production of documents and things relating to the facts which a court inquires, and method and rules relating to the facts before the court. And for those who listen, those policemen, they can go to Blackstone, and Blackstone said that which demonstrate, makes clear, or ascertain the truth of the very fact or point of issue, or to indicate the means by which any fact or point of issue may be proved or disapproved in a manner complying with the legal issues governing the subjects. And they are the tellable facts, but evidence, direct, circumstantial, and hearsay. We may take several sessions to go into this here, but we just scratching the surface. The means by which you prove or disprove any matter in court in relation to the legal methods that you have to go through. Yes.
No, well, the good introduction, but as I said, we said this is not a course in evidence, but it's just to highlight certain very important points. And I make this point to say, I refer to the same issue of the killing of young Bacchus, people calling for court. But in court, I said it last week, I'm repeating it again here for emphasis, that it is not what you know, it's not what suspicions you have. The court don't deal with that. Is what evidence you can. So you might believe that you know what transpired. You might believe that there's strong suspicion as to what transpired. The court don't work on that. You have to have the evidence. And as my colleague pointed out, the evidence is either direct evidence or circumstantial evidence. And when we talk about direct evidence, we're talking about things that you saw. Statement, you saw what took place. So that's direct. I saw when this incident occurred, right? I heard when the accused said so. Or the man might have made a confession. So there's direct evidence. But as I wrote a piece, which I think was published in one of the dailies today, that it points out that in the real world, in the real world, every crime would have someone who saw it and was able to give direct evidence. But the reality is that never happens. You're not gonna get someone who see the crime. So what happens? You have to investigate. You have to get direct, what they call IC or evidence. And then when you don't have that, you have what we call circumstantial evidence. So as Mr. Conway rightly pointed out, when we talk about direct evidence, as I said, statement. I saw when this incident occurred. I was coming down the road and I saw when this man pulled out a gun and he shot this man. That is direct evidence. You saw it. Might be a case where you heard what the defendant said. Or, as we said, the man might have given a confession statement. He confessed, he admits to doing the act. So there is direct evidence. But one of the problems they say with direct evidence, especially eyewitness evidence, over time, people's memory can fade, and it all depends on the circumstances surrounding the evidence. Let's say, for example, this incident, a robbery took place in the night, limited light. the suspect or the defendant or the accused person is not known to the victim or victims, but they might have an opportunity. They might have seen him. They might have seen him. So the police training is that when you're taking a statement from that person, you're going to get all the details. And one of the things you're going to find out, you're going to, of course, try to establish all the lighting, what was there, and how this person would be able to identify this suspect if seen again. So there's one of the things that you were trained to ask. Would you be able to identify the suspect if seen again? The person says no. If the person says no, it's no. But I have seen cases where person would have said no, and then police talking about identification parade and so on. Well, that is rubbish. They can't go no place. If the victim is claiming that they don't know the person and they're not going to be in a position to identify the person, you have to pursue some other means. On the other hand, the person might say, yes, if I see this person again, I am going to be able to identify them. So in some cases, you use a a photo album. You get the photograph of the suspect. It's in an album, and policemen who are listening, make sure you understand this clearly. You can't show the victim a single photograph. You can't show him a single photograph and say, well, look, is this the person? That is not going to stand up in court. You have to have a photo album and ask him to pick out the person from the photo album. You also have what is the more popular identification parades. Now that too has some issues because in the identification parade, you have to have persons who are similar
Similar,
they,
yeah.
to the suspect. You have persons. So if, for example, the suspect is a man, I would say a black man with afro, and you have to have other persons. I think it's up to 12 persons, 8 to 10 to 12 in the ID parade, with similar do and all of that, right? Complexion, same thing. You have to do all that, and that is where the problem can come with an identification parade. Force police get difficulty in getting people who are similar to the suspect. CC, you want to comment a little on that there, though?
Yeah, just to get back to the direct evidence. The thing is that you should be able to speak of what you have personally experienced with one or more of your senses. I saw mommy kissing Santa Claus last night. That is direct evidence, or I heard, or I smell, or as the case may be. So direct evidence is where you have personal knowledge of the event. It's not coming from any other person or any other source. And then you mentioned about circumstantial evidence. You don't have the direct, but based on the facts and the circumstances surrounding the issue, you may infer, you may come to the conclusion, well, this is it, as you rightly mentioned. So even if in the absence of direct evidence, persons could be convicted based on circumstantial. Sometimes it is so strong that you don't have any doubt about it, as the case may be. I've been listening to some interviews recently, and then I watch it saying, hey, there's no direct, but there are circumstantial evidence which telling you, hey, this thing had to happen and this person had to be involved in, as the case may be. Yeah.
Well said. Circumstantial evidence. I wrote a piece. I said it's on my page, my social media page, 2 pages, speaking out on my personal page. It's there for you to read because with circumstantial evidence, they say the circumstances you can infer a particular outcome or a particular fact from a set of circumstances. And one of the, for example, um, you are walking down the road. That's a deserted road, and you turn the corner, and you see a man like bleeding, and you see a next man with a cutlass running away from the scene where this man was lying. You did not see if this man inflict a wound on the man who's lying there, but from the circumstances, you can infer that he is the one that is responsible for causing injury to the person. And in the example that I used in the piece that I wrote, and this is taken from one of these law sites, that let's assume there's a robbery, a group of men, all mass, rob a bank. Now, because they were on the escape, now because they were masked, you're unable to identify who they were. But then let's assume that monies which were stolen from the bank, marked bills, the serial numbers that were recorded, are found in the possession of one or more of the suspects. The inference there is that they were involved in the robbery. More still, let's assume that they were overheard. This same set of men bragging that they were able to buy luxurious items. Walmart say you buy a car, Walmart do this, and you know that they are unemployed or that the jobs that they are doing are low-paying jobs. So you can infer that they were involved in this robbery. And then it goes on to say that during the course of their escape, somebody might have seen them going into a particular car or vehicle owned by one of the persons before the code. Again, an inference can be drawn. And then the last example that is given in that piece is that if fingerprints belonging to these suspects are found at the crime scene, then that can be circumstantial evidence that they were involved in the crime. So, as you pointed out just now, it doesn't have to be a case where you catch a man with money to say, well, he involved in the crime or he thieved the money. Circumstances, from the circumstances surrounding incidents, an inference can be drawn. An inference. And I remember years ago giving evidence in a court. It was a matter where some monies were stolen from the TSU payroll. And a certain sergeant was charged based on circumstantial evidence. And Justice Premprasad was the trial judge in that matter. And at the end, the matter was dismissed against him. And then he made the point that circumstantial evidence case can be very strong, but the circumstances must point to one person and one person only. If the circumstances point to the fact that someone else could have, may have committed the crime, well, then you cannot convict. That was the direction to the jury. All the circumstances must point to this one person being the person, only person who could have committed this crime, and therefore, based on that, you can convict. But if it points to maybe someone else could have done it, then you cannot convict based on the evidence before. See,
Yeah, and Paul, we don't do enough forensic investigation, as you quietly mentioned. And a simple definition that I got from the FBI, that forensic is the application of scientific principles to police investigation. If you go back to the East Coast shooting, or I would say the East Coast murder, there got to be a lot of forensic evidence there. But when you look at it, they didn't protect the scene. You have got to lock down the scene. You got to lock down the scene as long as possible until you finish with it. You mentioned an earlier case where a police charged with discharging loaded firearm. I saw footage of them searching a crime scene in a little trench there, and the place wasn't locked down. And all they do, they trample down the ground looking for a gun. They didn't process the scene in a proper manner. Just walk up and down and put their hand there, as the case may be. That you have to lock down the scene. You have to protect the scene. You win or you lose a case at the scene. Forensic evidence is there, but we trample it. And then I listened to the commando and I gotta repeat it. And he's saying they stopped doing um,
cordon search.
cordon and search. They're doing intelligence-led investigation. And even me, I have a problem with intelligence-led investigation. I will look for actionable intelligence. So if you're not protecting the scene, you win or lose the case at the scene. You mentioned earlier about Lockhart theory of exchange. Something will remain there. The perpetrator will carry something. Even sometimes a little short button you can find missing. You could find at the scene and you go and connect it with the person, as the case may be. And the investigation has got to be meticulous. You got to be meticulous. So I'm hoping it's a long delay in the East Coast investigation, But I'm hoping that because they are very meticulous, the supervision is very meticulous, therefore there are no hush, there are no hurry to really come up with something. But I hope that the proper one will be done. As I mentioned earlier, I have the highest regards for Justice Ramlal in terms of supervising investigation. But then again, coming back to a point that we hinted earlier, he can make all the wonderful recommendation in the world. And when it goes to DPP, I won't be surprised if the DPP says manslaughter or whole inquest.
Yeah, yeah. So, and in this same matter that you refer to, this crime scene investigation ought to have been done immediately. As you rightly pointed out, is a case where you should have coordinated, so should have locked down that scene,
Yeah.
cordoned the scene, and you do a meticulous investigation for empty casings. Because I think they said that the person chatted them. Not the man shot at you. You would have had the reason to search the scene properly to try to recover empty casing. The next thing, in terms of science, forensic, you need to have established that the man, in fact, fired. So you would have done gunpowder residue tests and all of that. So I don't know what was done, um, what what evidence, especially the scientific evidence. Because coming back to direct evidence, we said before, a person might have seen something, and the example I gave, a robbery, and the limited might have had limited light. The person might have seen this person just for a few seconds. Now, the issue with that when it goes before the court and the person has to give evidence, because evidence is presented in court orally, um, through documents, and what we say real evidence. So orally is where the witness, having given a statement, goes into the witness box and then recounts what he or she saw. The problem with that is that during the course of cross-examination, a skillful lawyer, right, can, and in many times, as we say, destroy the witness, creates doubt about the credibility of the witness. And if the witness is proved not to be credible, it's trouble with the evidence. It's trouble. And that is why we say that while direct evidence is good, you get circumstantial evidence, and you refer to the scientific evidence, which supports the case. So a combination of those things make the case very, very strong. So that if the witness goes into the box and for some reason the witness forget details, because that happens quite a lot, because for example, the cases that we were talking about 4 or 5 years ago, this matter would have occurred. Yes, at the time when the statement would have been given, the incident should have been fresh in the mind of the witness. But over time, either through corruption or through lapse in memory, the person goes into the witness box and they can't remember, or blistering cross-examination, and they crumble. So if you don't have the scientific evidence, and that is the way to go now, scientific evidence. That is, everybody look at CSI and they look at all these things, so they know what we're talking about, scientific evidence. But the police force is still too dependent on confessions and other forms of evidence that can be ripped to pieces at the trial. Can be ripped to pieces. CC, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, Paul. Sometimes they judge your credibility by your demeanor in the witness box. You're talking fluently, and when questions start to put at you, you start to stumble. You start asking to repeat the question. You shelter under the pretext, or I can't remember, and on a whole other things. I watched some clippings recently, and I saw the mannerism of persons. I saw the demeanor when hard questions are asked, and I wanted to know whether they're credible with what they're saying. But to add to the conversation, I did a 1 year comprehensive training program for the Guyana Police Force with the Tech Group, United States of America. Instead of we sending our ranks to America, we brought America here. And programs that I left there, crime scene management, effective investigation, effectively dealing with people, interviewing witnesses, interrogating suspects. Those programs I left there, hard copies, trainer's copy, trainees copy, and PowerPoint presentations. I don't know if they're using them, but I left them there and they should be available and they should be embedded in their minds, not only the detective, but all members of the force in terms of training if we want to really solve crime.
Yeah, but that's an important point because one of the things that we were taught is that, it's something practical. Because while you might want to stress on the investigators, that's the detectives who are going to come to investigate the crime, the training is that the force responders,
Yeah.
the force responders, that is the people on the beat, have to be trained to protect a crime scene because in most cases, they are the ones who are going to arrive there first. So when they arrive at the crime scene, they have to be taught how to protect. The unfortunate thing in Guyana is that when the people arrive at the crime scene, no proper attempt is made to protect that scene. So many times you find a lot of people walking all over the scene, trampling in areas where evidence and corrupting the whole crime scene. So by the time the trained investigators arrive, the whole scene has been compromised. So this is something for them to note that people on beat duty, people on patrol duty, all those persons should be taught how to protect a crime scene until such time that the experts arrive to process the scene. So that's a very important point you made. It's not only the detectives or the people or the technical people, the technicians, but all persons, all have the understanding and the knowledge how to protect a crime scene. Because as we are emphasizing, unless the crime scene is properly protected, then you're going to have issues collecting scientific and other evidence. And if you can't collect the evidence from the scene, then the whole investigation is compromised. The entire investigation is compromised. And once the investigation is compromised, the end result is likely to be unfavorable. So that's a very important point that you made there. Now, we were talking about how the evidence is presented. You present the evidence orally, where the person has to has to go into the witness box and they give the statement, or you might have documents to support the case, documentary evidence. Again, documentary evidence is presented through a witness. This is for the people to know as well, because you don't just go and put the documents in. Somebody has to give evidence, and then the documents are tendered to a witness. So you have to have that, and then you have what we used to teach to real evidence. Real evidence are in the form of exhibits. So if there was a murder, let's say, and a knife was used, the knife was recovered, the knife become real exhibits. You have a lot of cases now where marijuana is seized, marijuana is lodged, marijuana is real exhibit. So you go to court, you give the evidence, and then it is tendered and admitted in court as the real exhibit. And I have a story about real exhibit. I can't say it here, but at some stage I can tell you about the real exhibit. As a young policeman, I made a case of shoplifting. It was the police consumer squad. A man pick up a bottle of brandy, and he walked out. And I arrested him, took him, and the brand was changed by the time I got to court. I gave in evidence in respect to the brand that I intercepted, and then when it was examined, it was a different brand. But there are more details to that that we got to talk about over a drink and laugh over it and so on. But it is important for the young policemen to understand it. It is important for young policemen to understand that it is, and not only the young ones, but the ones in authority as well. Because one of the failings of and I heard the former commissioner, Mr. Felix, mention it on a program last week, is that when certain incidents occur, they do not go to the scene to see for themselves what has happened and to give direction. In certain incidents, it's not if you don't want to micromanage, but in certain incidents, my experience is that as a commander, you have to go to the scene. You have to go there and take command and make sure that the thing is done, investigation starts properly, that and it continues in an acceptable and proper manner. Do you have that experience too, CC?
I remember when I was commander with them, there was a fatal accident at night. And when I went to work, I told my driver, let me go to the scene. I went to the scene. And 3 days after, I got a report about the accident. And they said the driver saw from a pothole, and driver saw from a pothole and hit the pedestrian. So I remember I visited the scene and I didn't see no pothole. It was a good road. So I got the investigator. I said, let me go back and show me this pothole. And he couldn't show me no pothole. So there are times you have to visit the scene and have your own first-hand knowledge of things. And especially in terms of serious offenses, and I'm talking to the commanders, that you must have knowledge. So when you're talking from a position of strength that you must know. It's not that you're micromanaging, but you must clear in your mind's eye what really took place.
You're right, but it's not again, and what happens is that when the ranks know that you're the type of commander who is going to take command and be there, then they are not going to take liberties. They are not going to take liberties. But if they get the impression, they know you. I mean, these people study, the
Yeah.
junior ranks study the senior persons, and they know that, well, this our year gonna come, so we can write and we can say anything. But
Mm.
if, as in that case, you identify, they know that you are a man who's going to come to the scene or that you have visited the scene. They're not going to take those type of. They're not going to take that type of liberties. I see Frankie is saying here confession statements can no longer stand up in court, but it's not entirely true. Confession statement can stand up, but it's the way how the confession statements are given. Um, if, for example, the judge's rules are properly followed, in some cases, I know when I was commander, people wanted to make confessions. Sometimes you invite prominent persons to be there. So it's not the police only witnessing the statement that has been made. Some prominent. So confession statement can be, but there are problems with confession statement, and the problems in the main come about because of the reputation or lack of credibility of some of the investigators. So once you lack credibility, um, it's very difficult if you're the investigator and the people go on and make allegations, because almost in every case, I understand what you're saying, almost in every case, once a lawyer recognizes that the case hinges around the confession that his client made, he's going to attack the confession statement as to whether the confession statement was taken in accordance with the judge's rule. And if the statement was not taken in accordance with the judge's rule, there goes the case. There goes the confession. And if the case is dependent only on the confession, it means that the case gone overboard, as we normally say. So I understand what you're saying about confession statement, but yes, um, and that is why the training is you do not only rely on confession statement. You have to have other evidence to support your case. I made reference some time ago about a murder in I think it's Myconi Creek or Michael Creek, one of those creeks years ago. Might have been in the late 60s, early 70s, sometime then, where
Benny Prasad
Benny
matter.
Prasad murder. That was a famous case, and it was used as an example when you were doing certain training. Because in that case, I think there were three or four accused persons, and they all gave confession statements. According to the police, confession statements were given. I remember well the lead investigator was Ulrich Landon, the famous detective 6605 Ulrich Landon. And confession statements were given, but the skillful lawyers were able to get the confession statements thrown out at the High Court. And despite the fact that the statements were thrown out, all of the accused were convicted, and all of them were sentenced to death, and all of them faced the gallows. So we are saying that to say that that investigation was so thoroughly done. They did not only rely on the confession statement, but they went to get other evidence. They got every other evidence. And I think it was a safe they stole. They stole a safe in that matter. And if you remember how that matter went, CC, with the safe, Do you remember?
Miss Squatty get.
He ended up getting trouble
Uh,
innocently.
yeah.
Innocently. The elephant he used to call me. The
Oh,
elephant innocently got trouble for that safe. I would never ever forget that. The elephant, I know your real name and the number. I don't call you
I
real name and
know.
the number.
It's
But
Miss
the
Squatty.
elephant, yeah, you know your squaddy. The elephant was a top detective, and they were out to get him. And he ended up, they said that this one man, pick up this safe and he stole the safe. And we know it wasn't so. And of course, when the matter got to court, the man got off. The man got off. And then later it was said who was the architect behind the safe being stolen. And the safe was stolen for those people, for full disclosure, the safe was stolen from CID headquarters. At the time, CID headquarters used to be where general office is now. That is in the middle flat at the commissioner's building. That is where CID headquarters used to be. And it was claimed that this man picked up the safe, big heavy safe, take enough people to carry the safe up into the place. And this one man said the elephant stole the safe and took it away, charged, he lost his job, and all kind of thing. So, get a lot of history to talk about. A lot of things. And we know we say, again, full disclosure, we say that while um, things used to be bad, you always had issues of corruption. You always have issues of perhaps interference. But buddy, nowadays we say it has reached unprecedented levels. The political interference, the corruption. Look, only the other day, police sergeant from Timeri charged with stealing marijuana from the station. A couple of days before, a police rank, thing from the TSU, charged with hijacking some car. Oh man, this thing gone out of whack. This thing gone out of whack. And you can't defend these things. What you have to do is to make sure that you get systems in place to make it starts from the recruiting process. It starts from the recruiting. And see, you're a recruiting man. So you should, I'm sure you will recognize that that is where it starts. Do you agree?
It starts there, but Paul, on the other end of the spectrum, there is the what you call the we used to talk about trickle down economics, but there's trickle down corruption and incompetence.
Yeah, yeah, it trickles down. And remember, we say that one of the mistakes they make is that they believe that the junior ranks, the people below, are dunce and they don't know what is going on. The people know what is going on. They know who are the bagmen. Not only that chap with a fancy name that rhyme with foo, but
Mm.
they know who are the bagmen. They know who does collect, for whom. The people below, they know that. So you can't fool them. And when they get in the back room or they get somewhere, they discuss it.
Yeah.
They know that. They know who on the take. They know who collects for whom. And they know that. So therefore, as the thing go, a lot of people decide, well, we can make the heights. If they're making the heights, we can make the heights as well. A man going to our office with a big brown bag and he come out according to a particular case years ago, come out smiling. If you know what's going on, the bag left, he come out to the bag and he's smiling, people know what's going on. You can't fool them. You
Mm.
can't fool them. They're aware of what is going on. CC, closing remarks. You have any closing remarks?
Yeah, just want to mention in terms of the investigation, and we are doing investigation. And remember George Jackman on my prosecutor course, and he said three things you must look at when you're investigating: facts in issue, facts relevant to the facts in issue, and facts which introduce and explain. Repeat: facts in issue, facts relevant to the fact in issue, and facts which introduce and explain. So I hope that the investigators, and we're talking to senior people here too, that do a proper investigation and also look for forensic evidence. Lock off the place, lock it down as long as possible till you
For
finish
as
with it.
long as it takes to process it properly. Yeah, you lock it down for as
Yeah.
long as it takes to process properly. There are cases,
Yes.
sometimes weeks, months in
Yeah.
those places, those advanced jurisdiction. As long as it takes to process the scene, you lock it down and you process. Sometimes people can't even
Yeah.
access their own residence, their own homes,
True.
because it is a crime
True.
scene and you got to put them up somewhere. That is the
Put in
way
hotel.
you have to do it.
Yeah.
That is the
Mm-hmm.
way investigations are done. So I'm glad. You know, one of the things we did not mention, somebody did comment on my page that I should have in the letter that I wrote, I should have addressed AC evidence. Well, I will deal with that at some other time. But we focus on direct, on circumstantial, because I believe those are the main, when you're doing investigation, the main thing that you look at. But we're going to just perhaps next week we'll continue and touch on what is AC
Okay.
evidence. Suffice it, however, to say to the um, the ranks who are watching and people are watching, this notion that people love to say, I have had cause in the past to rebuke even senior people who will tell me that ASA evidence is not acceptable. That is not so. That is not so. It says as a general rule, ASA evidence is not acceptable, but there are exceptions to the ASA rule. And when next we meet, I will touch briefly on ASA. I will touch on ASA and go into the exceptions to the AC rule. So, Mr. Conway, again, I want to thank you for finding the time to be with us here this morning, to be with me this morning to discuss what we believe were some very pertinent and current issues. Thanks for your time. And God's willing, I will see you next week.
Okay. Thank you.
Folks, thank you very much. Again, I close by saying I would normally close by telling you this thing that named COVID is real. And I will continue to say that the numbers are going in the wrong direction. I think yesterday had 80 something new cases. A few days ago, they reported that persons have died from COVID. We need to make sure that we protect ourselves. We need to remind ourselves at all times that COVID is still a very deadly disease. And by now, you know the protocol. I don't have to repeat them. You know the protocol. Just be reminded that protocol is still very much with us. And therefore, let's take all the precautions to keep ourselves, to keep our friends, to keep our families and colleagues safe. So bye for now. And God's willing, next week, Wednesday at 11 o'clock, we will reach again to continue or to start a new program on speaking out, exposing corruption, incompetence. So bye and be good.